basi bila shaka baada ya muda usio mrefu utaweza kupata fursa hiyo.
Asante.
The transaction where you buy and sell goods or services. Kenya exports mostly raw materials with a major stronghold in agricultural crops, especially subsistent or even horticultural crops. Kenya is indeed rich in export materials, but does it gain from this export business? Exportation builds global trade and also trade relations where countries get also to import goods that they don't produce locally. However, there are major hurdles in the export business, one of them being export tariffs. Some of the tariffs are far too costly for the exporting country, and moreover, while importing the finished products, it is quite expensive. Because of this factor, there is an Export Promotion Council set up to look at these issues. What are its roles in the export business, and what
Good morning, Kenya. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, karibu sana to today's edition of GMK. I will be your presenter, Joseph Makoha. Before I introduce my guest and talk about what we shall talk about, let me do some in-house keeping. We have celebrated the Obama victory. Today, we want to go back to work. I want to imagine that you people have looked at the standard, no, not the standard, the nation today. If you look at the nation, look at Gado's cartoon. That cartoon tells you it's time to work. Today will be the first day the president-elect will meet the other president who is leaving, and he'll be shown around White House. But look at what Gado imagines will be the handover message. The handover message is about problems, problems, problems. In fact, a heap of problems. And Bush says, this is all going to be yours. So let's go back to work. In fact, there's been so much write-up over the weekend about this victory and how Africa is going to enjoy the benefits, if ever. And most people who have been critical have said, let's honor Obama with hard work. Let's honor Obama by doing things better so that we don't shame him. They don't go pointing fingers. That is where Obama came from. Look at what they're doing. So let's show him some good work. Let's go back to work. And there is one writer who came out very strongly yesterday about just that. Let's go back to work. That would be the best way to honor him. And today, GMK goes back to work. If you recall, every Monday is our developmental day. Today we are going to talk about agriculture. We want to go back to work, so we don't go begging Obama for assistance. Let's work and sweat it out. So today we are going to talk about this very important subject. They call it the SRA, the Strategy for Revitalizing Agriculture. This strategy is being discussed today at the Safari Park Hotel. The seminar begins today and goes all the way to Wednesday. We want to find out how we can grow better, produce better, and feed ourselves. The shame of begging for food is far too much. So today in the studio we have experts that took part in the strategization of this particular plan, and we want to find out from them just what it is we can expect from that seminar. We are honored with the presence of Dr. John Mutunga, who is the CEO of what they call the Kenya National Federation of Agricultural Producers. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
John, you are part of this strategy in 205. And we see this strategy as an effort to see what agriculture can do in regard to the ERS. Remember the Economic Recovery Strategy?
Yes.
The strategy has ended. Now we're on Vision 2030. And you guys are strategizing again as partners to this thing. Give us a sense of this new strategy in terms of you people regrouping to see where we go in terms of agriculture.
The strategy began before 2004 through a consultative process involving the sector stakeholders. And it was kind of the sector interpretation of the ERS, or Economic Recovery Strategy for Wealth and Employment Creation, which was the guiding principle of the country at that particular point in time. So the agricultural sector, its stakeholders sat together and decided to have a long-term strategy which of course bypasses the 5-year, term of the previous government, lifted the vision and the spirit of the economic recovery strategy.
In fact, you go all the way from 204.
Yes, I want to start there so that I explain how the strategy comes in and how we are strategizing this time around. So it put together the needs of the sector to grow, because agriculture sector was growing at very low levels. Around 2000, 2002, agriculture sector was growing at less than 2%. So there was need to look at how do we enhance productivity, and growth is about productivity. We are talking about productivity at the farm level, productivity at the wider sector level, and productivity as a nation. The relationship between the agriculture sector growth and the economic growth of the country is very correlative, highly correlative.
Absolutely.
If the sector does not grow, it means the economy doesn't grow. And we have very clear illustrations of studies done that have shown this is clearly how the situation is. So this strategy lifted the spirit of the ERS, developed a long-term strategy, and it was launched in 2005, officially launched, given to Kenyans to explain to them exactly what to expect. And then we promised in 2005 that we shall come back after 3 years to tell Kenyans what we have achieved.
Oh, yeah, it's already 3 years. Yeah.
Yes, so this is the end of the 3 years. And we are now having a strategy for revitalizing agriculture conference, which kind of brings back the feedback to the Kenyans, engages the stakeholders, and engages the clientele, mainly the farmers, to try and tell them to look at what we've been able to do.
And I want to go to that point.
Exactly.
John, the seminar has not started. It started today.
Yes.
So maybe you don't have a fuller sense of its findings. But from your strategic position, I want to imagine you already can share with us what the 3 years have been like.
Yes, sure. After developing the strategy, we came up with an implementation framework, which clearly showed the implementation arrangement, the institutional alignment, the roles of different institutions, and the role play in those institutions. So then the arrangement, in terms of implementation, brought together a unit called Agricultural Sector Coordination Unit. So this is the unit which has been coordinating activities. The strategy is called Agricultural Sector Strategy Coordination. The unit is called Agricultural Sector Coordination Unit, meaning that it cuts across different ministries. Right now, we are kind of mirroring the productive sector ministries, which are about 11 of them, but we effectively engage between 9 and 10. So that time we were dealing with the core ministries and a few others who are not core. Core, in this case, we are talking about the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Livestock Development and Fisheries that time, the Ministry of Cooperative Development, and again, the private sector, represented by the Kenya National Federation of Agricultural Producers. On the side of private sector, the institutions are organized under the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. And there is a lead institution in each sector. So Kenya National Federation of Agricultural Producers, where I work, is the lead in agricultural sector.
The one would expect so.
Yes, so it is we chair the agriculture board in KEPSA. So we have been participating in the implementation of the strategy. In other words, we sit in the interministerial coordinating committee, which coordinates or rather makes the decisions in terms of implementation of the strategy itself. We also sit in the steering committee of the strategy, the technical committee, the different thematic working groups, which look at different issues, and also the task forces and different efforts that have been put through. So according to implementation, we start with identifying the core areas. The strategy has got core areas of concern. In this case, we have
Yeah, like I did point out, we have, I see the key factors affecting the performance.
Yes.
I see that in your report, that particular strategy that was propounded in 2005. Yeah. And you begin with unfavorable micro and macro economic environment. Yes. You're a specialist in these things, especially with your PhD in agricultural sciences and environmental sciences. Yes. What could be these hurdles? Because you begin with the macro and micro. Over the 3 years, what have they been? Share with us these macro and micro hurdles.
When we talk about environment in the agricultural sector, we are looking at the kind of policies that we have, the kind of institutional arrangement that we have, and we look at this at macro level, at the national level. how do they impact or how do they enhance or dissuade productivity? At the micro level, we look at the production unit level. What kind of issues do they have? For instance, input supplies, for instance, marketing of the produce and so on. So we analyze all these and realize that we needed some institutional reform or institutional transformation at that point in time.
What, for example, have you come up with? You are particularly
yes.
a spokesman for the farmers themselves,
Precisely.
the producers.
Yes.
And yet the biggest hurdle for them at the micro level is fertilizer.
Yes, I know the
cost
biggest
of fertilizer.
Yes, the biggest problem right now, it has not been a major issue before last year, but right now is fertilizers. We also have markets, which is a major hindrance and so on. But what the strategy has looked at is, do we have pieces of legislation that dissuade investment in the sector? Do we have some which require to be merged, which require to be maybe repealed, which require to be looked at?
In fact, I was
so
hoping
there was a total thematic working group on the legislation.
I was hoping there would be somebody from government here.
Legal and regulatory framework.
Because I'm told you have 130 separate pieces of legislation.
Yes.
130.
And we've been looking through those. There was a specific thematic working group looking at the piece of legislation, and they have given specific recommendations on what should be done. So this is going to be tabled in Parliament when it is finalized. The process is quite at an advanced stage. The other issue we have looked at is in terms of institutional arrangement within the different sectors. How do we work together? How do we address productivity? How do we have programmatic coordination at the sector level? How do all of them harmonize in terms of reducing time wastage in implementation and the coordination aspect of it? We have also looked at the investment in various areas of the sector, what kind of legislations dissuade investment, and how can we open up for private-public partnership. So all these things have been coming in.
In fact, as you say what you're saying, we seem to go back all the time to the 130 legislations.
Yes.
If there's a way you people, especially the producers, could make your preferences, what are the laws that you would want as necessary and those that you'd want to discard?
We have been sitting in this thematic working group, especially the one on legal and regulatory framework, and we have given our input, specifically looked at the legislations that there are and how they affect the agricultural productivity aspect. And then we have put our case very clearly. Some require to be completely done away with. Others require some kind of amalgamation, merged. And others require some changes. So that has been done to a great extent as at the moment.
And then there is even a part that touches on the arid and the semi-arid areas. And yet we now have a ministry that was not there when you guys were strategizing in 2005.
It was covered under the Ministry of Livestock Development, especially at that time. Right now, the Ministry of Arid and Semi-Arid Lands, Northeastern, is part of the sector ministries. So they have the opportunity to give an input on what they believe is the strategic orientation that the government should have and the stakeholders in the sector should have, so that they may deliver development in those areas. So they are part and parcel of the strategy now. Let me finish the fact that how do we come to this conference? So this conference is a feedback conference. And feedback
3 years,
after 3 years. We are coming to tell Kenyans we have done this. The sector was growing at very low levels, and now the sector, as at the end of last year, was growing at around 7%, which means productivity has been enhanced to a great extent. And the growth of the sector, of course, has also factored positively in the growth of the economy. We also have realized that despite the many challenges in terms of escalation of prices of commodities, or rather in prices of the farm inputs, we have seen progressive development in the sector. I don't know what to struggle with this. So in this particular respect, we have enhanced the growth of we have looked at what areas needs to be focused on. And after the change of government, at the end of the NAC government, with its achievement up to around 7% growth in the sector, the strategy is under review right now to align it to the Vision 2030, especially the medium-term plan.
And yet, John, as you say what you're saying, we read elsewhere.
Yeah.
And we see, you point out agriculture was getting stronger because tea and horticulture were getting stronger.
Yeah.
And as you say that, we see farmers in Central Province uprooting their tea.
Exactly.
Connect the reality to the policy.
We have specific problems in specific commodities. And these problems, they require to be focused on. As farmers, we have raised some of these concerns in the different consultations that we have. Tea is one of the sectors that needs to be looked into. Farmers are not satisfied with the benefits they're getting from tea. The levels of taxation and they put it in quotes because these are not taxations as warranted or specified by the government. It is the institutional arrangement and the cost within these institutions. So we have put our case very clearly to the government on the issues that need to be dealt with in terms of tea. And if those issues are tackled, then the farmers will not continue uprooting their tea. The idea is that some of the factories that are able to sell their tea directly without passing through the long chain, which I do not want to define in details here, they are able to get about 3 times more the benefits than the farmers who are selling through this other one. So we are telling the government to look at these things. The Minister for Agriculture has instituted some commission. I think there is a study on the core problems that are affecting the tea industry. And we believe this study is going to be implemented. The outcome of this study will be implemented. Okay. And the Minister has promised very well. He's very supportive of the issues in the sector. So we believe there's going to be some positive outcome this time.
In case you've just joined us, this is Good Morning Kenya on Monday. And every Monday we talk development. Today we have put a stop to our celebrations of the Obama victory. And we want to respect him by working hard, going back to our farms. So today we are going to talk about, and we are talking about a seminar that began today at the Safari Park Hotel, talking about this document, a document that was put together in 2005 in response to the economic recovery strategy. It's still valid. It runs from that time to 2014. And it is going to be connected with Vision 2030. What has happened to our agriculture? 3 years down the line, the experts are meeting again to find out just where we are in terms of this strategy. We are in the studio with Dr. John Mutunga, who is the CEO of the Kenya National Federation of Agricultural Producers. These are the people who carry the burden of production. We want to find out just how we can rely on them after this seminar as we move forward to economic security in terms of food security and all else. John, food security.
Yes.
Producers are producers.
Yes.
You take on every producer.
Yeah.
Food that is for export, food is that for internal consumption.
It is.
And every politician has sought food security. This is one thing we are not very close to doing. Yeah. We are importing maize, lots of maize.
Yes. Yes, you are right. Kenya is a net importer of most of the staples, like the maize, the wheat, the rice, that we feed on. And the problem is that we have not been able to reach that level of production where we can say we are producing enough maize for ourselves. That's why enhancement of productivity is an issue. We have seen progressive growth in the amounts that we produce on every year. I think our net demand for our demand for maize, for instance, is about that 6 million 90 kilogram bags of maize.
Yeah.
But we produce between, sometimes we can do up to 32. Sometimes on a very good year, we are almost able to produce the much that we need. We fill the gap. It is possible for us to increase our rice production. For instance, we can open up the areas. And we have sat as a ministry, as a sector, and looked at how can Kenya feed itself and even export, and take advantage of the increased produce prices at the international level. And we came up with a strategy, which is now, a specific action document that says that if the agricultural sector, if we had public investment of 72 billion Kenya shillings, we would transform agriculture, we would feed everybody.
72
we are talking
billion.
of, and it's not really a large figure. We are supporting education. We are supporting a very expanded government.
As you talk about 72 billion,
it's not a lot of money.
We are talking about 13 billion only that you are given. Is that all that you are given this year?
We are given very little money
13
this
billion,
year,
I think.
because of the many issues that you understand. And I think we do not want to continue understanding as agriculture. And as farmers of this country, I think farmers need to take this very seriously. They need to look at how does the government support them? This government needs to look at the commensurate support of this agricultural sector to the economy, and they relate that to the amount of money they vote for the agricultural sector.
And yet,
and that's
John,
the way we can feed our people.
As you say that, there is a whole AU,
yes,
the African Union policy.
Yeah.
I think it was in Maputo some years down.
Yes,
that 10% of the budget should go to agriculture.
We have been pushing that very, very, very seriously, especially with Treasury and, of course, discussing on how can we progressively develop this. As at the end of the last financial year, we were able to get 9.9% in terms of development support to agriculture, and 5.4% in recurrent. The total was 6.8%. Now, this year, this financial year, things are very different. So then we also would like the agriculture sector to be looked at the main agriculture sector, not necessarily the main ministries within the agriculture sector, and not the wider, productive sector. And I think we are supporting it so much. If we give productive sector maybe 7%, we may be making a mistake here thinking we are supporting agriculture sector. We need to look at the core ministries that actually drive, and also the private sector that is also supportive of the agricultural sector.
There are those who think, and I see it as one of your objectives, overall objectives, that if we commercialized hard enough, if farmers began to see their agriculture, their input as business and not as some holiday or occasional seasonal preoccupation, we will do it. In fact, you read it out like this. Commercializing activities in the sector by encouraging private sector participation at all levels. Precisely. You people are particularly important should that objective be realized.
Yes, that is one objective that, of course, requires to be realized in detail, and the content is put there in the same spirit. We look at agriculture in Kenya. If you look at small-scale farmers, for instance, they have not gotten the idea of farming as a business deep into their operations. Sometimes if you try to look at the gross margins or net margins, they may not factor labor, their own, the time they spend and the contribution they make on farming.
That little boy from the school who helps on the farm over the weekend.
The farmer believes that it is his business to be on the farm. So we need to move from this subsistence nature and try to train our farmers to become business-oriented. And that is the essence of this particular conference. The conference theme is Kilimo Biashara. That is transforming agriculture for productivity, agribusiness, and marketing. So if we look at productivity, then we link it up with agribusiness in terms of the different types of transformations that we can have in the agricultural sector to make sure that farmers really benefit from farming. And then we provide the market, because that's our major setback in the agricultural sector. I think we do not have markets. Our markets are not developed to an extent that they can sustain the perishables, to stay in the market for long enough to fetch them good prices. So farmers sell at throwaway price, especially at the farm gate, without oblivious of the prices at the a market, the major market outlets, but they sell at the farm gate at very low prices sometimes below the cost of production. And therefore, we are saying as farmers,
in fact, that's what the point is.
Time has come for the Kenyan farmers to stop subsidizing the consumers, to stop subsidizing everyone. For instance,
but John, before you go on, the villain here is the middleman. The middleman is happy to fool the farmer. The middleman is happy to cheat the farmer that the price on the market is low when he knows he's going to make 101% profit. How do we eliminate the exploitative middleman?
Very simple. And this has been the bone of contention in the sector. We need to organize our farmers. Those countries that have grown, call it Europe or America, they started by organizing their farmers and investing in agriculture. Investing and putting money into agriculture. There is no agricultural system that has developed without government support. So when you look at the way we handle issues in the agricultural sector, we don't consider the farmer as the most important person. We have relegated our farmer to the last category. In fact, if you retire to farming, people think you have made a serious mistake, that you have a major problem, irrespective of whether you are making a lot of money. So we also need to destigmatize agriculture and destigmatize farming. And this is some kind of, I don't know where we got this kind of, I would call it an abnormal way of looking at it. It's a very wrong perception.
No, because all the time we've looked at it as an occupational hazard.
Precisely.
You do it as a season demands.
Yes. So what we need to do is basically to organize our farmers at a very local level into producer groups. These producer groups will appoint their own negotiator for their produce, then supply them with the market information so that they are not taken unawares.
Right, yes.
And then when these middlemen come, they do not deal with individual farmers. You see, when farmers operate as individuals and then they are on small scale, they are small scale farmers, there is a problem always, because they may not know what the market prices are like, they may not know what their neighbors are selling at, and the middlemen are wise enough to cheat them. You sell to them at X, then they come to me and tell me that you have sold at X minus maybe 50 or so, and they get at a much lower price. So we need to have our farmers together, organized in a way that they are able to deliver, to organize in a way that they are able to meet, discuss, and agree. This is how we are going to sell our produce. And if they discuss and agree on that, then they can have a negotiator who will negotiate with the middlemen. And then they have a way of reach the information, network or information system that reaches them with the current price domains within the market. They are able to get benefits from agriculture. But what we have right now is a situation where large population of our farmers are not organized. They are not into any form that can negotiate. We have struggled as an organization and put together a farmers federation with the 22 commodity-based organizations at the national level. But these commodity-based organizations need to be supported to be able to stabilize, to get the farmers with them. That's one thing. Yeah. Then when you look at the others who are not necessarily in any commodity organization, they also need to be organized under now the umbrella organization where we have put the district federations. We've been able to put 50 district federations. If we can strengthen this structure, it is possible for the Kenyan farmer to speak and the middleman will listen. But as long as we focus on looking at, assuming that the farmers will organically evolve, they will be able to organize themselves somehow, and they will be able to reach there anyway. And if the government is not involved in organizing farmers, it's not their business. We miss the point.
And as we miss the point,
we continue being food insecure. We continue speaking productivity, which may not occur if we do not organize our farmers properly.
I am admiring that proactiveness. And yet, you cannot be too proactive without information.
No, you can't.
How are you utilizing the ICT? That farmers can use a mobile phone, for example, to know the prices.
Precisely. We have some private sector organizations that have come up with a mobile transmission system that gives farmers, that enables price discovery at the farmer level. And specifically, we have they're operating, but not in the entire country, in some parts of this country. As an organization, we have also put together a network. Our offices at the district level are information centers. These information centers are linked with our data unit at the headquarters. And this data unit transmits, but on a weekly basis, transmits this information which can be released now to the farmers. The government has come up with an information network. There is an information or communication strategy within the government, within the sector, which is one of the products of the sector. I mean, as at the moment, the communication strategy is going to enable the farmer to be acquainted or enable to know, to discover the prices of commodities at different times, and then they are able to know what to sell, how to sell, and they're also able to therefore, factor their productivity costs. On the other hand, we are looking at also procurement. It's not only in selling that farmers lose. Farmers also lose in terms of buying. When they buy in very small units and transport over long distances, then they lose again.
The so-called economies of
scale. So we need to have our farmers organized to harness the economies of operation.
How do you get that factored in the strategy? As you guys begin talking today to Wednesday, how is that? Because that's a very important point. How do you get that centralized?
Now, we are participating in the review of the strategy. The private sector participation in development, it was recognized by the Cotonou Agreement in 2000, and this translated into PPP policies within government. So the spirit of the PPP is to bring together the government and private sector as equal partners in development. We are talking about mutual respect, we are talking about genuine communication, we are talking about mutual support. I want to tell you that we do not get this. It is not there in us, as I speak.
They don't reciprocate.
We have to push our way through, which is not very good. In a situation where we should be respected equal partners, we are relegated as the lower level partner. So in a situation where we are operating so many ministries, you realize that the private sector put as one, which cuts across all those ministries, is still, its role is demystified. We have been sitting in the review of this strategy, and we have specifically identified a chapter for private sector and elaborate in this chapter to reciprocate what is being done by the ministry, so that together, in the spirit of the Cotonou Agreement and under the PPP policy, then we are able to collaborate as equal partners. And this is one thing that we expect.
Share with us some of the details of that chapter. Yeah, what are the key points?
Precisely. We are saying that first and foremost, we should be able to organize our farmers, not as private sector who have gone into farming to benefit, like you would go and open up a shop. We should not look at farmers as private sector individuals. We should look at them as civil society who are non-state actors, but contributing to the productivity of agriculture in this country.
A lot of times non-profit.
Most of the time, actually, they are non-profit. So we need to look at them and organize them and support them to build their institutions to engage the government. To tell the government, you invested so many billions of shillings into agriculture this year. Where did you invest it? How did it translate into real outputs? That's the kind of thing.
Who are the recipients?
That is the first thing in our strategy. Then we're looking at farmers' organizations, again, who do not get any form of support from the government. Well, meager, if there is any, because under the strategy, we've been able to support a few institutions, at least to go and establish their own ownership in their constituencies. So we need to have the institutions of the farmers to be also recognized and supported, to be strengthened, to be able to play their role properly. They need professional capacity to match the professional capacity in the government.
Yes.
We have all the scientists in the government. So we need some commensurate level of professional capacity in the private sector to engage the government on an equal basis.
And yet the government will tell you they have an extension service.
They say extension service is like, for instance, farmer empowerment, which is very different. I think the two are very different.
Yeah, yeah.
Farmer empowerment is enabling our farmers to demand, to understand what they need,
absolutely,
and to be able to factor that demand in the correct place.
You get that chapter endorsed.
So that is one of the things. The other thing we are saying is that we need proper, the three principles of Cotonou Agreement: mutual support, mutual respect, genuine communication. When we are dealing, we should not be looked at as people who should be coming last. I think we have a position here.
So how do you go around that with this under-budgeting of the ministry? Like you talked about 72 billion would be adequate.
We are together with the ministries as a sector to push for the government recognition of the role that the agriculture sector is playing, and therefore give support to the agricultural sector, as it were, to feed the people and support the economy. So if they do that, if the government does that, of course, and others who are also players in this particular respect, then it will be a positive idea. Yeah, for
John, you have provoked our viewers, you have provoked the farmers, and let's share with you some of the provocations. Here is John Koech from Molo. Tumekupatapata John, how is Molo? And John is saying, how best can we improve the ASAL areas? We talked about that.
Yes, we did.
Give him some assurance again.
Okay, John Koech, I thank you very much for that particular question. As an agricultural sector strategy, we are also brought in the ASAL, the ministry that looks at the ASAL areas. And the ministry is in the process of developing its strategy to respond to the various issues. Being the people who are engaging with the farmers or pastoralists in the ASAL areas, they have come up with the core issues or challenges that the farmers are facing in those ASAL areas. And we are going to use those core challenges to incorporate in this particular strategy. The strategy defines the overall guidelines of the sector, and then each ministry is going to elaborate these guidelines into its own specific plans, and that is how we are going to address the issues of the ASAL areas.
Okay, yeah. And then we have this nameless sender. Please be giving us your names, your location. We are into our 8th month of a GMK Live, and there's a tradition that helps the guest especially to empathize with your perception. What is your take on GMOs? Should they be introduced in our mainstream farming? This is Nameless. Just call him Nameless.
Mr. Nameless, that's a very interesting question. As an organization, we have a position on GMOs. We are saying that we cannot stand on the way of science. Science needs to be done. We are also saying that we would like to partner as private sector in how this science is being developed. We have indeed partnered to the extent that we are part and parcel of the realization of the BioAware policy. And therefore, we have a unit within the Ministry of Agriculture, which is cutting across the different sector ministries, which releases information on BioAware. Our take in this is that our scientists should do the work and tell the Kenyans, we have produced this as Kenyan scientists. We do not want information borrowed from elsewhere and tried out here. We would like our scientists to innovate, come up with scientific evidence to show that it has no effect on the environment, it has no effect on the farmers, it has no effect on our animals and the relatives of this particular product. Coming from our scientists, from the institutions that we respect a lot, we shall be able to take that one up as an innovation that is worth taking. But importation of knowledge unless for use to produce our own, which you should verify before you give to the Kenyan farmers, is something we do not respect as an organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have Robbins from Runyenjes. Remember we talked about the tea farmers? And
Yes.
Robbins is concerned from Runyenjes.
Yes.
He's saying, GMK, farmers here are uprooting their tea plants due to low payments.
Okay.
What are you doing to ensure that farmers are paid well for their products?
Yes, as an organization, we have sat with the Kenya Union of small tea owners, and we have listened to them. We have looked at the study that was conducted by the ministry. I mean, there was a commission by the former Minister for Agriculture. We have also looked at the issues that they are raising. We have looked at the categorization, or rather the array of costs that are levied by the institutions that are operating within the tea sector. And we have realized there are serious loopholes and there are serious management and serious cost reduction measures that need to be taken. And we have proposed that the ministry, in the current study that is going on, listens to the farmers and factors in the issues that the farmers bring up. We should not ignore what the farmers say, because at the end of the day, we shall need the farmers to produce tea. If they uproot tea, we will not only miss the income from tea, we shall also miss water to our 7 Forks Dam. We shall also miss water for Nairobi. So we are looking at the tea growing area as also a catchment for water. We call tea actually a green water. So I think we need to look at the problems that the farmers have raised. We have an array of those problems, and we shall be launching these problems when this particular commission visits us as an institution. We have decided to hold on and wait for them to speak to us so that we may tell them exactly what the farmers are saying.
John, I want to add a point to what Robbins has just said.
Yes.
We used to have this thing called graduated income tax, so that the farmer can be exempted from the burden of taxation should a crop like that go wrong. How are you strategizing for that to help soften the farmers' tax burden?
We are looking at how can we encourage our farmers to keep on producing and increase in production. Productivity is not just the production per unit. It's also enlarging and sustaining production and improving production. So without some of those things being looked into, then we may have a problem. So the idea is that we are looking at the entire subsector wholesomely, the kind of problems, and categorize the problems, the core problems, the inherited problems, which of course that have come as a long history, historical problems, and the ones that are emerging and are reaping farmers. We are saying that the institutions within the tea sector needs to be studied. The farmers need to be considered as the owner of the tea and not as an employee of an institution. And that is the situation right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is Ngesa from Ugunja. Asante sana, Ngesa. Ngesa is coming up with a very, very important point. And Ngesa is saying implementation of the strategy must be devoid of waste. In fact, he calls it wastage due to low input, corruption, pests, etc., etc. 40% of the produce does not reach the table.
Yes.
40% is wasted.
Gesa is very right. Gesa, you are very right. We actually conducted a study as an institution on the amount of waste that we lose, the issues within the mango industry. And we realized that we lose between 50 and 75% of the mango because it has a short maturing span. We do not have cold storage systems that would enable the farmers to keep their produce after it has ripened for long enough to be able to fetch market. We have not industrialized our production. In other words, we have not come up with either micro or medium level processing plants that would enable our farmers to process the mango and sell to the processing company, the juice making companies as puree. Most of those juice making companies import puree when we have the mango here and going up to 50% loss. So those are some of the things that we need to look at. Wastage is one of them. And in the mini strategy that we talked about, the 72 billion thing, we looked at how can we modernize our markets in the sense that we have cold storage markets whereby the farmer's produce will be secured. The other thing that it looks at is how can we also assist the farmer to benefit when the product is ready. In other words, some kind of, it's called the warehouse resisting system for the farmers to be cushioned from the difficulties at the point of harvest so that they may wait for the commodity to be sold. So those are some of the things that we are looking at as an institution and even as a sector to try and address and enable the farmers to be able to reduce the waste. A lot of
the new minister, Ruto, has been very vocal on that.
Yes.
Storage, cold storage. Yeah. How far are we between talk and action?
In the private sector, we have a forum under the Prime Minister's roundtable. The first roundtable was on 5th of August. And we met the Prime Minister, and I was at the Ministry of Agriculture Roundtable. Honorable Ruto was in the agriculture, and that is one of the things that he highlighted, that it is time to start walking the talk, and we stop talking and doing something.
Yeah.
The Minister for Nairobi Metropolitan actually said they will offer land for construction of modern markets. And in other local authorities, we may also need some space to construct this. The Ministry of Agriculture is looking at possibilities and how can we also direct some of the resources, not only agriculture, the agricultural sector ministries. They're looking at possibilities of investing some resources into cold chain storage structures. And that we are looking at where do we have the products and how can we site it such that the farmers do not suffer a lot in delivering, and what kind of mechanisms do we need to introduce in terms of management at this unit, so that the farmers also do not suffer, again, the long-term wait. And we also need to look at what kind of problems are we facing now with institutions at B, so that we may reduce some of those rigidities that may also take advantage of the farmers.
John, I'm impressed by the kind of questions we're getting from the viewers.
Very interesting.
I kind of sense that we have stopped celebrating the Obama victory and gone back to work. Yeah. Your questions are particularly insightful. Listen to this. Here's a question from Kim in Calif. I think Calif should be California. And can the guest tell us how they are planning to boost more production of rice in other regions, replicating?
Yes. Yeah. We have one variety of rice called Nerika rice. Nerika rice is highland rice. It can grow not necessarily in under paddy conditions.
You have seen it in the Lake Basin Authority?
Yes. So we are reopening. The sector is reopening some of the old irrigation schemes and expanding them. And we are also looking at rice that can grow without necessarily having a lot of water. So that is the strategy we are taking, and we believe we will increase productivity of rice if we follow that kind of mechanism.
Nerika is Japan, eh?
No, it is a new rice for Africa. It's a short form for new rice for Africa, produced in Africa, and I think it has been
Nigerian.
Yes.
Something originating from Nigeria.
Yes, I think it's from a West African country. It's called Monte Jones.
Yeah.
And he's a renowned scientist.
I've gone to the Lake Basin Authority depot, and I've seen it.
Yes.
Before the destruction. I hope that depot was not destroyed by the skirmish at the beginning of the year. But look at what Pastor Kariuki is saying from Othaya.
Okay.
Asante sana, Pastor Kariuki, one of our reliable listeners.
Okay.
Are you, he says, as you go for that conference, the conference you're just going to, please address the issue of processing and marketing of goat milk. This can greatly boost the income of the farmers and ensure you address the importation of eggs from outside the country. Asante sana, Pastor.
Pastor Kariuki, those are very interesting and insightful thoughts.
Absolutely.
We actually thank you for that. I know Central Kenya is one of the areas that have taken up dairy goats production, and there's a very strong member of KENFAP called the Dairy Goats Association of Kenya. And we have promoted production a lot without necessarily looking at the side of production. Processing and marketing. And I believe goat milk is one of the highly nutritious milk that we have from the different variety, species of animals that we use for milk production. We will articulate these issues at the conference. KENFAP is heavily represented in this conference. We have a 75-man representation in terms of all our chairpersons of the commodity organizations and all our chairpersons of the district level and branches of KENFAP. So they are going to raise these issues because some of them, including the Dairy and Goats Association of Kenya chairperson, is actually sitting at the conference. And I believe he is going to raise some of these issues. I will personally make sure that that issue is raised and addressed.
And as you do that, our viewers from Garissa and Moyale and Mandera have not quite been part of the discussion. But this is what they would have asked you. As you talk about the goat milk, how about camel milk?
Precisely. That's another commodity that you need to look at. I'm saying that we need to identify the areas of excellence. We establish some centers of excellence in terms of what products is being produced where and how can we add value to this product. The reason why the farmers of Kenya have not graduated into, the reason why precisely we have increasing number of farmers and reducing sizes of land, as opposed to what we have in the other parts of the world where we have reducing number of farmers and increasing sizes of land, is because our farmers have really never benefited from agriculture. And we have not also principally industrialized our agriculture. If we can put some processing plants, especially in those areas, having done proper analysis to see where can we locate it, what kind of productivity are we talking about, and how can we process this milk for long-term usage, and also for transportation in other areas, because I'm sure it is preferred in some parts of the world, like Middle East, then we will be able to support these farmers to also look at agriculture in a productivity sense. So those are the kind of things that
John, as you say that, I want you to go back to that chapter, the chapter you guys want to push in and make sure these fellows reciprocate, the government reciprocates. What else are you putting in that chapter?
We have clearly looked at having a framework for the recognition, categorization, and engagement of the different private sector players. Recognition in the sense that we have mainstream private sector who are business people. We have others, business people can be either agri-business in terms of agrovets and others, or agri-input suppliers, agri-chemical suppliers. We also have processors who are private sector. And we have commission agents or marketing agents who are private sector. These private sector are very strong if we look at private sector per se. Then we have the other private sector whom all of us are supposed to be serving the farmer, who is not as strong as these individuals. All delegations that will go to the Minister for Agriculture will be discussing on how much more can we pressurize the farmer.
Yes.
The agrovets will go there to say we would like
to have...
on the
receiving end.
Yes.
All the time.
All the ones I've mentioned. So we need to have a thinking tank to try and analyze how can we look at the different private sector institutions and how can we make these institutions, therefore, contributory to the productivity of agriculture. And how can we, therefore, make our farmers also enhance the level of reciprocity in terms of, contribute in terms of production, but not subsidize any costs that come in. Let me give you an example of how farmers subsidize. We have the poultry farmers in this country, especially broilers. The cost of feed has gone up to by around 85–90% over the last 1 year. The cost of vaccines and so on have also gone up because these are fewer. They know each other. They are able to get together very fast and increase. So the farmers,
like
the poultry farmers are so disorganized. They have not come together to increase the price of capon. It has not gone up at a commensurate level. So they are subsidizing the cost of input for these guys. They are also subsidizing for the consumer. So the farmer is subsidizing in both ways, which is very unfavorable, which might drive them out of the market. So if you see Kenya is importing, like products from South Africa, is that a preferred direction we should take when we can produce them here locally?
Oranges,
when our farmers,
rice,
when
eggs,
we can promote, it is because our marketing system and the equation is not balanced in terms of what farmers produce, what they get from the production, and the cost that they are at.
Just before, I'll go back to that chapter again, but before we do.
I've left two other issues.
We are going to. Ngesa has come back to you. Remember Ngesa from Ugunja?
Yeah.
I think he's very impressed.
Oh.
And he's asking, do you have agents in the district? Please. So, assure Ngesa.
Ngesa, I would like you to know one thing. We have 52 districts. 50 districts right now where we have set up branches. In 24 of these, we have established real offices, which are information centers. In another 26, we have put it in the next year's plan to establish offices. And these offices are the link points between our farmers and headquarters. We do not want to replicate the ministry way of doing things. We also are aware that we should not have a huge establishment, especially when we are not funded by anybody, so seriously and progressively.
Too much bureaucracy.
We do not have, the level of funding that can grow institution to that extent. But we are going progressively to open up offices, and we are looking, ours are called area branches. They are not necessarily going to be by the district demarcations that we have right now. Okay. We are looking at the old 72 districts. In other words, we are saying actually we have kind of covered
like catchment areas.
We have these institutions in 52 districts. Once we put up the offices in those 52 districts, they will be covering the other districts, the former districts. So it will be a branch covering the former. Then the 22 districts which are under ASAL, we cover them through the Kenya Livestock Marketing Council, who is a member of KENFAP. So in other words, we are saying we are spread all over, and it is possible for Ngesa to get in touch with us through, if it is Kisumu office, we have an office in Kisumu, we have an office in Siaya, we have an office in Bodo, we have an office in the Chuonyo.
Yeah.
In the western,
And
the
then,
Nyanza region.
And then South Nyanza.
South Nyanza,
Oma
Bay is there, Kisii is there. We also have we have an office in Kucha, not Kucha, Kuria. I think it's called.
Yeah.
We have an office. Yeah, we have an office there.
Is Kuja the district, the headquarters?
Yes,
Kuria.
we have an office there, and we also have an office in Migori. So that area is very well covered.
Okay.
And the farmers of that area are very enthusiastic, the kind of work we are doing, and we are very support. I mean, we are.
What surprises me, John,
yeah.
as you spread out like that in an area like that,
yes,
which is not terribly famous for agriculture.
Precisely.
What are you doing there?
We are linking up the farmer to the supply chain in terms of knowledge and information. We are telling the farmer to identify their problems. And once they identify these problems, we relay them to our research institution because it may be as a result of not having the appropriate variety. Then we are also looking at mindset. We actually go out there to discuss with the farmers on how they can apply the land that they have as a resource to also increase productivity in terms of the choices we make. We're also looking at possibilities of sensitizing for spreading out or rather diversifying our consumption habits. Because if we say maize is the only thing we can eat, then we can easily go hungry. When we have other sources of energy that can give us the same amount of calorie that we need per day.
And indeed, John, as you talk about that region, especially the Unguja area and South Nyanza and the Nyanza proper, we see the dominant producer as the fisherman.
Precisely.
How is a fisherman captured by your federation, for example?
We have started an association called Kenya Fisher Folk Association. And the Fisher Folks Association looks at the fishermen. We also have another association called the Apicultural Association of Kenya. No, Aquacultural Association of Kenya. The Aquacultural Association of Kenya looks at the fish farmers in their farms, those who have fish ponds. Now, according to the Fisher Folks Association, actually it is headquartered in Kisumu.
Okay.
But it has not grown to a level where we can say it has spread out. We want to bring together all the cooperatives that are operating at the lake region, empower these cooperatives, linking up with the government to try and establish mechanisms that can enable them to bargain or get better pricing for their fish. Because the idea is that there is dominance in terms of the middleman, again, and then they do not benefit substantially from the fishing that they do.
Okay. If we are lucky, John, you might just jump to those 2 points that are in the chapter, chapter that we are pushing in, because our time is done.
We are saying that there is need to have a positive enabling environment to sensitize, rather to attract private sector to invest in agriculture. The reason why private sector may shy away from serious investment in agriculture is because they do not realize its benefit. So the strategy should look in terms of identifying the core areas and selling these core areas to the private sector. We also need to look at the micro level investment in terms of transformation of the product. That is value addition.
Value addition.
Value addition. Local level value addition, which can grow to meso and even large scale value addition. And this will also make the farmers at the local level, and the young farmers especially, realize that there can be alternatives other than farming. In the process of demystifying agriculture or agricultural production, we are going to be able to inject another type of income source at the local level. So that can easily transform the trend from rural-urban migration to urban-rural migration, or staying at the rural areas.
Good.
Yeah.
John, asante sana. As you go to that meeting, you have seen the kind of interest our farmers have through this program. I want to wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
Good Morning Kenya must stop here. Thank you for having been part of it, especially those of you who took part in the discussion through the SMSs. I want to wish you a happy morning, and the party is over. Let's go back to work. Turudi mashambani. I was your presenter, Joseph Makoha.